Go ahead, take it away.
Pastor Nick, Julia, thank you for allowing us to come. My wife, Dawn, is over there, and her and I are the missionaries at large for Open Bible. I represent 3 different countries, Kenya, Uganda, and Cuba. Cuba, I was just there a few weeks ago, and I'm going to be focusing mostly on Cuba during this time because of the needs that they have, and I'll explain that as we're going on in there. But it's a joy to be here and to meet all you folks. I'm looking forward to a great morning this morning. Now, my wife, she always tells me, now make sure they know that I don't go with you, that you go, and I send. So my wife is the sender, which means when I'm going out the door with my suitcase, bye, love you, I'll pray, is the life insurance up? And so she sends me, and then I am the one who goes. And it has been a joy. In the last 8 years, I have been on 19 different missions trips. And of course, I was still doing that when I was pastoring. We retired 2 years ago after 40 years of pastoring. And so the Lord changed our direction. And seriously, we did think we were going to retire and go to Florida, play golf, watch the palm trees. God had a different plan. So here we are, going around and raising money, itinerating, and sharing with people what God is doing in the 3 countries that I represent. A missionary at large is someone who goes out on the mission field, but we come back, or I come back. What we do is I'll travel like this, I'll raise money, I'll explain some of this a little bit more later on. And then I'm able to take that money and I can take it with me to Cuba, I take it with me to Kenya or Uganda, and it goes there to help the Open Bible brothers and sisters. These are all Open Bible churches, so they're all part of our organization. And I get to go and help them with the needs that they have. So with that being said, I'm going to share with you, a few things, all right? Oh, you know what, I forgot would you reach in my little pocket there and get the blue, I need my glasses. I'm 67. I'm not to Braille yet, but I still need my glasses. There we go. Gracias. There we are. All right. See, that proves I'm 67. I forgot something. We have some slides for you, so if we would put up the first slides, the first one is going to be Cuba. Yep, there you go. And I'm going to slide out of the way here so you can take a look at those. So this is Pastor David. He is the pastor and the president of Open Bible in our Cuban churches. We have 150 churches in Cuba, believe it or not. And Pastor David there, he is just a great man of God. His wife, Rebecca, they have been the Open Bible ministry for about 30 some odd years, and they are just wonderful people. So go ahead and go to the next one. Okay, so this is the church that we are at. Now, not all churches look like this. However, it depends on the size of the congregation and how much money they have. And so there are quite a few of them that need painting fixed up. But right now, the communist rule there has tightened down so they can't even buy paint. And they have to go to the black market to buy food, to buy gasoline, because they closed down all the stores just for control. Go ahead to the next one. This is the front of the church. And our churches usually tend to be a little nicer, than theirs are. Go ahead to the next one. All right, this is Pastor David and his wife Rebecca. You see the suitcase over there. Every time I've gone, and I've been with them 3 times now, I always have a suitcase full of toothbrushes, toothpaste, shaving cream, razor blades, because those are things that either they can't get, or even if they can get it, some of the pastors don't have the money to purchase those things. So that's why I take money with me, give it to Pastor David, and then he knows the ministers that have the greatest needs, and so he'll hand out to them some of the money that I take, as well as the toiletries there. And it was important. On this trip here, it was one of my first trips going there, he had shared with me that there was a husband and wife sharing a toothbrush. You know, I love my wife, but I do not want to share a toothbrush with her. So we made sure that the husband and the wife both got one, so they didn't have to worry about it, all right? Go ahead to the next one. And this is them again. Now notice the kitchen. This kitchen looks like my grandmother's kitchen 60 years ago. And when Fidel Castro took over, everything froze in time. So that kitchen is from the mid-50s, early 60s. And if it looks like your grandparents' kitchen, yep, probably is, because that was what happened when Fidel took over. Go to the next one. This is the room that I stay in. It has a small bathroom and shower off to the side. It's got an air conditioner, but it only works when the electricity is on, and they have roaming blackouts. So I might have air conditioning, and I may not. Might have lights, we may not. It's just, that's how it works there. Go to the next one. All right, this pastor here, this is the couple that had to share the toothbrush. But this is a typical pastor and his wife. They live in a home next to or part of the church. So their house is to the left, and this is kind of like a carport, like we would call a carport. So what they do then is they, drywall it in, and they use it for church. And so many of the churches have this same format. Go ahead. Okay, and this is looking down from the front there. And it gives you, again, the idea of what it looks like. The door there to the right is just a curtain, and that is the home that they live in, and then this is their church. Go ahead. All right, this is another church. Pastor David and I were at, as you could tell, it was a little bit bigger. We're doing the praise and the worship there. And it's interesting, I don't speak very much Spanish, just a little bit. I know how to say baño, which is, where's the bathroom? You got to know that. I know how to say coffee, cafe. So I drink too much coffee, I got to go to the baño. Well, it's just how it works, I'm sorry. But I don't know a whole lot of that. But I was watching here, and these churches are all different. And Pastor David is over here, of course, he's worshiping the Lord. And this is a little bit bigger church, a little bit more people in it, so they can afford a few more things. Go to the next one. All right, so this is not a tourist photo. I didn't take this picture and go, oh, they'll just love this in America. No, this is his transportation. If you go to Cuba, you will see many people with just a horse and a buggy. If I would have taken a second picture, he had 2 or 3 5-gallon jugs of milk in the back, and he was taking it to the dairy to sell. So that's his transportation. And he's fortunate. A lot of the Cubans do not have driver's licenses because they don't have cars. And so in the morning, if you're coming in the morning, you'll see hundreds of them with their thumbs up, hitchhiking their way into Havana to go to work or to go to school. And then about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you'll see that same group of people out on the road with their thumb up trying to get back home. And then they repeat it all the time. Go to the next one. And this is outside of Pastor's Church. This is the street that is there. His building is on the left. And I just wanted to show you kind of a typical street. This is just kind of how it is. You can go from street to street, and there's garbage laying around. You can look, and things need painted and spruced up, but that's just kind of how they live. Okay? Go to the next one. This is another church that we were in. And I wanted to get a picture of this one because if you look at the picture to the right, what they do is they'll take a calendar and they'll rip the picture off a calendar and hang it on their walls because they don't have pictures. Go to the next one. All right, now this obviously painted. The pastor and his wife are the first here. The lady in the front, her name is Jaimelis. She is my interpreter when I go there. So the couple behind her, this is their church, and as you can see, well painted, ceilings painted, good sized congregation. So again, it just kind of depends where everybody's at. Go ahead and go to the next one. All right, so if you have heard that there are cars from the 50s and 40s and 60s there, you heard correctly. They are everywhere. and they keep them running. No, they don't get parts from General Motors or Ford sent to them. They actually, if something breaks, they make the part, put it on, and they keep it rolling. The people with the nicest automobiles, like these guys here, they use them as taxis. So that is their way of making a little bit of extra money, while they're living there in Cuba, struggling to make ends meet. And so you'll see all of these motorcycles, Harley Davidson, Panheads, and all those things. They're there, and they're everywhere. And it's kind of cool to see that part. Go ahead. Oh, yes, they don't have guns. When Fidel came in, he took all the guns away. Sound familiar? Anyway, he took all the guns away so they couldn't defend themselves. So if a Cuban wants to know what a gun looks like, they have to go to the gun museum in downtown Havana. And then they can look at them. I mean, they can't touch them, can't take them, but they can see what they look like. All right, go to the next one. All right, and this is Pastor David's church. He runs around 400, somewhere in that area. He has a dynamic church, great praise and worship, and God is really using him in the Guanajuato area. And honestly, all the 150 churches that are in Open Bible there, he has helped bring on and open. And again, a great man of God. Go ahead to the next one. All right, this is Kenya. I was in Kenya in February, right? I was in Kenya in February. And so these photos are from Kenya. The young ladies there, their parents can afford to buy them these outfits for school. If you don't have an outfit for school, a uniform for school, you can't go to school. And if parents can't afford it, then the kids don't go to school, and then you'll see kids all ages running around, no education. You don't get anything for free there. And so these young ladies are coming back from school. Go ahead to the next one. All right, and I'm not sure if you make it out okay, but there is a well that was dug. Wells, fresh water is extremely important in Kenya and in Uganda. All right, and on our needs list in the back there, people can give towards a well for either country if they would want to. It's huge if they can get a well, because then they can get fresh water. If they don't get fresh water, I'll show you in a minute, but they get it out of a river. They wash their clothes in it, they cook with it, they drink it. It's not good, but that is how they live there. Go ahead to the next one. All right, and this is an actual village, all right, town. I mean, it's just, I wanted you to see, because this is how these guys are living outside of the larger cities. Go to the next one. Okay, I took a picture of this because on the right-hand side here, where those larger windows are, I thought it was like an empty building, and then I realized, no, people were living in this because they can't afford either a mud hut, and they still live in mud huts. We built 3 mud huts when I was there last time. They still have mud huts. Just like, I'm 67, so if you went to, junior high school and had the social studies, and remember, we saw all those things when we were that age, it's exactly that way. Water on their heads, carrying babies around, on the back or around on the front. Very little has changed over those years. Go ahead. Okay, now when I go, I do pastor seminars with the pastors there. That was one of the other advantages of me going. I'm not just raising money. I get to go and have sessions with the pastors. And so these were pastors that came to the meetings that we were holding. And I did 3 days of meetings here near Kisumu, and then I did another 3 days worth of meetings in another village called Saigomeri. All right, go to the next one. Okay, so I want you to see there is 6 people on that motorcycle. Again, this is not photoshopped. This is real. They put all their kids on there. They put luggage and suitcases and anything they need to travel with. If they have a motorcycle, they will put it on that motorcycle and take them. And so this father is carrying around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them on one bike. All right, go to the next one. Okay, so I had the privilege of speaking. We were asked to come to the police department in Saigomeri, and the chief of police wanted us to come and share the gospel with the police officers that he was in charge of. And so we went, and I had the privilege of preaching to them, sharing with them. And if you look, every single one of them got a new Bible. You know, it's in Swahili, so I don't know. Obviously, I can't read it, but they can. So they all got a brand new Bible. So this is me at the end of the sessions. I'm assuming you can pick me out, but I'm the white guy over there. Okay, just saying. And it was hilarious because, well, we'll show you some more pictures, but here the police officers were kind of, after I was done, they were kind of coming up, getting near me, and they didn't say anything. I said, do you want to get your picture with me? And they go, yes. So about the third time that happened, I just said, okay, who wants to get their picture with the white guy? And so, well, they all did. So we just said, okay, let's do this all and get it done with, or else we'll be here all day long. Because, and I'll show you some children as well in a minute here, I was the first white person they had seen in person. I mean, they had seen them, on television or whatever, but they had never seen anybody that was white. And so they wanted to talk to you, and the kids wants to touch you. Go to the next one. Okay, this is where they're getting their water. And as you can tell, it is just out of a crook. So a well is huge in these countries. Go ahead to the next one. There they are, getting the jugs again, dipping down, getting it out of the creek. Go ahead. All right, so this is me at a school, and you can see the kids are touching me. It was one little girl. She goes like this. One didn't know if it rubbed off. You're good. Don't worry. It doesn't rub off. Go ahead to the next one. All right, and we're at a village here, and again, you can see they wanted to touch me. Again, I was the first white person they've seen in person in there, but I'm bent down because they had just finished putting their hands through my hair. I mean, theirs is really coarse, and, ours isn't, and they're like, your hair's so smooth, Go ahead. There may be one more. If not, then we're good. Is that it? All right. Thank you. So I'm going to just share with you for a few moments out of Luke chapter 21, verses 1 through 4. Luke chapter 21, verses 1 through 4. And of course, this is familiar because this is the widow's mite. So let me share with you what I've learned over 40 some odd years of pastoring. Then he looked up and saw the rich putting their gifts into the treasury. Of course, that was Jesus. He was watching the wealthy come up, and they were dropping large amounts of money into the treasuries, okay? And he saw also a certain poor widow putting in 2 mites. Now, 2 mites, a mite is close to 1/10 of a penny. So it was really worth putting it in. Well, we'll get to that. So he said, talking to his disciples, truly, I say to you that this poor widow has put in more than all. For all of these out of their abundance have put in offerings for God, but she out of her poverty has put in all the livelihood that she had. So I want to take a few moments this morning and share this with you. I pastored for over 40 years, and every time we had missionaries or special speaker or somebody coming in, inevitably there was always 1 or 2 people that came up and said, oh, Pastor, I would have loved to have given to them, but I can't afford it. I just don't have the money. And the truth is this. It's not the amount you give, it is the heart that it is given with. If you can put in $1, that dollar will go with somebody else's dollar and somebody else's dollar, and then before you know it, we'll have raised up enough money to purchase food for them, or $5. So it's not, people get this idea of if I can't put in big, then I probably won't put in at all. Don't do that. It doesn't matter how much you give. God will take whatever we give him, and he is the one that'll bless it. He is the one that will multiply it. He is the one that will use it. Yeah, I mean, we're giving it from our heart. In the natural, when this lady put in those 2 mites, there's got to be somebody somewhere thinking, wow, what a waste of time, man. She just threw in these 2 mites. But Jesus says, no. She just outgave all of them. Obviously, it wasn't about the amount. It was the heart that she gave it with, the attitude that she had towards it. Whatever you give, no matter what you give, I will tell you that God will use it. Every time I go to missions field, I'll always take money with me. And many of the times that I go, people will give me a 5, a 10, or a 20, then I kind of pull it all together. But by the time I get going, then I might have several $100s to give to the pastors or the people that are needy. So don't let your mind tell you, oh, don't give because you don't have a big check to drop in. It's and I thank God for big checks. I mean, you got to have them all. But when you take a step of faith and you put in $1 or a $5, you're giving God something to work with. You're planting that seed so that the Lord can bless you back for the money that you put in. So it's not the amount, it's the attitude that it is given with. So I thank God for all of those that can and will give. Praise the Lord for that. But also a reminder to you, I know Julia, she kept bothering him. Is there any missionaries around that they can come to our church? Well, Burleson Dawn, but they're in Illinois. It's a privilege for me to be here, to come and share, what God is doing in these churches in Open Bible. And any amount that is given obviously will always help. And remember, there is always going to be more needs than money. We do not have enough money to conquer every need in Cuba, every need in Africa, every need in any of these places. But whatever we do, we can target the biggest needs. And that's part of my job as the missionary at large. I get to go there. I meet the pastors. I meet the people. We kind of sit down together and look at, okay, what are the biggest needs for this group of people? And then my job is to come back, raise money for those needs, and then to go back and then to make sure what was given goes where it's supposed to go. Every place I go to Africa, I go to Cuba, and I've been to other places around the world, and I let them know. Americans are very generous people. But if we think we're getting ripped off, you won't get another penny. See, somewhere they have to be held accountable that this isn't a free lunch type of thing. We're here to help you. We're here to help you build something or do a well or buy food or whatever it may be, but I'm going to make sure that it goes where it's supposed to go. Like I said, I pastored for a long time. I wanted to make sure that when we gave money as a congregation, that it went where it was supposed to go. And I could come back and tell people, okay, yes, we helped build this or we helped do that. And I was able to go there and I saw the building. And I can affirm that, yes, they did use the money for what we asked them to use it for and give them that guidance. So I can verify the projects. I can verify the needs. And then it also helps that I can go back then and make sure that the funds are directed where they are supposed to go. The current needs right now in Cuba is really food. And so what we're doing, and like I said, you're going to hear more about Cuba than anything right now. For whatever reason, after COVID, the government opened up all the stores. They stayed open for about 6-7 weeks, and then for no reason, they closed them all back down again, except for a few in Havana. So that forces the Cuban people to go to the black market to buy food, or buy toiletries, or they can even buy diesel and gasoline on the black market. But it's so expensive, if they don't have the money, it doesn't matter. They can't afford to go get it. I mean, the average salary for like a policeman, a dentist, a doctor in Cuba, it's like $30 American a month. That's it. You know, and Pastor David, he's told me, he says, you know, I make about $35 US. You know, it's like, you know, a couple thousand pesos. So everybody has to go there. I was telling Pastor Nick and Julia last night, when I went to Cuba the first time, they had just received the internet for the general public. Of course, you know, the government has had it. But for the general public, they were able to get the internet. And the first thing they asked me was, we have been on the internet, we have looked inside a Walmart. Now, our government is telling us that that is fake. That those stores, that's all fake, that stuff is not real. And they looked at me and they said, is there that much food? Is that what the Walmart looks like? Yeah. Yeah, that's what it looks like. That's hard for them. That's difficult for them. We take it for granted, you know, like every time we take a trip somewhere, we came into town and I go, oh, there's a Walmart. If we forget something, we can zip in there. Boy, they have none of that stuff. There's no American restaurants. There's no American stores in Cuba. It's all Cuba owned because it's owned by the government. Guantanamo Bay is in Cuba. You know, you've heard of Guantanamo Bay. And so I asked Pastor David, I go, if the Cubans hate the Americans so much, why do you allow an army base here? He goes, well, you pay rent. We get money for you being here, so you can stay. And that's all they want. They just want the money. So the Cuban people they're brave. They've suffered hardships in many, many ways. When I was there a couple of weeks ago, I went to a dental office, and I didn't touch anything, okay? It was not sanitary. There was still blood on one of the trays from an extraction that the dentist just had done. And I had the chance to talk with her, and she said, we have no ingredients for fillings. We have nothing to sanitize our tools with. She says, so when somebody comes to me and they have a toothache, she said, I can't fix it. The only thing I can do is pull it out. So if anybody knows, anybody's got a connection to a dentist where they'd be willing to, you know, send some free dental equipment and some stuff like that, man, let me know, because they need it desperately there. But that is how they're living, and that is the existence that they have, you know, in Havana. They're looking for the food. And it's very, very hard for those poor people there to find food unless it's the black market. There's 150 open Bible churches in Cuba. 150. And they need our help. And so we're going to put that container together. And the other thing that's happening, you know, Aaron Keller, he is the Men of Vision's director. He and I are going to share a container. He is going to get wheelbarrows and hoses and concrete and paint and take that part of the container. And I said, well, if you'll do that, I'll do what I can to buy the food. You know, bags of rice, oil, sugar, coffee, that kind of stuff, so that we can get it to them so that they can have those things and help make their life at least a little bit easier. When I do my pastor's seminars, you know, this is kind of what I do. You saw the folks there, and I did the other one. I didn't have a picture of that. What I do with the pastors there is I talk with them about the joys and the battles of being in the ministry. And I always open up my sessions like this. I said, if you're in the ministry, you're going to be lied to, lied about, stabbed in the back, and betrayed. And boy, I got their attention. And I take them to 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 14 through 17. In verse 14, Paul is writing young Timothy and telling him that Alexander the coppersmith has done me much harm. May the Lord repay him according to his works. Now, you and I are always used to reading the Bible, and when somebody does us wrong, we need to forgive them. I like that because Paul didn't sound like he was in the mood to forgive Alexander right there. He goes, may God get him. Go, sick him, because what he did, was wrong and it was hurting the ministry. In verse 15, he warns him, Timothy, he may come your way, be aware of him. In verse 16, he says, at my first defense, so Paul is standing pretty soon before Caesar, at my first defense no one stood with me, but all forsook me. May it not be charged against them. You see the difference? Alexander was hindering the work of the gospel, and Paul says, no, we're not doing that. The other one is just no one stood with me, and he said, that's okay. They don't have to. I'll be fine with or without anybody next to me. Verse 17 is what's very important. But the Lord stood with me. The Lord stood with me. No matter who you are or what you are going through, don't let Satan lie to you and think that you are standing alone. You're not. The Lord is always with you. Now, we may not understand what we go through. Some things happen to us that don't make sense. Things happen that we say, Lord, why? Hey, join the human race, me too, But I have to trust him because I don't know anybody bigger that could take care of my needs other than the Lord. But he tells them clearly, he says, but the Lord stood with me. And I tell those pastors, sometimes in the ministry, you have to stand alone and you have to remember who called you to the ministry. And it was the Lord. So there are times in our lives, like I said, I can't tell you how many times as a pastor that I would go into the sanctuary of the church that we were at, going through some storm, going through some battle, and asking the Lord to give me strength to get through it. But Lord, I know you called me here. I know you called me here, and I'm going to hang in there. But right now, I'd rather not. But I have no choice. I have to. And that encouraged them. Matter of fact, the pastors that you saw there after the first session came up to me and they said, man, we're glad that you went through that. Because we thought we were the only ones having those kind of battles. Because you see, because we come from the States, we don't have any problems. We don't have any needs. You live in America. What could go wrong? That's their mindset. And when I told them that we fight battles like they fight battles, that spoke to their hearts, because they said, okay, now we have brothers and sisters we know around the world that are facing some of the same things that we have to go through. And it was important for them to understand that. I tell them, look, Satan has a worldwide operation. I'm just saying. He's global, all right? And so everybody has battles. Everybody has struggles. Everybody has storms. It's just part of life. And so I help them get through some of those struggles that they have as pastors. So pray for Dawn and I. We travel. No, she doesn't go with the countries with me, but traveling mercies as we travel around, as God opens the door for us to go and share what is going on in these countries. We appreciate your prayers as always. And if you don't know where to give as far as financially this morning, you say, well, now do I give to Uganda, Kenya, do I give to Cuba, whatever it is. Whatever God lays on your heart, all right? And if you don't know where to give it, we have a thing called a DM account, which is in my name, and it's designated missions. So if you send money into my DM account, I can take that money and apply it to where the needs are, and direct it to the greatest need. Or you can pick a country, or you might say, boy, it was nice having him, but then somebody might come from Hungary, someplace like that, and go, wait a minute, I want to give to him, because I know that, people have the Holy Spirit speaks to people differently. So you may not have an interest in Cuba, Kenya, or Uganda, but somebody else might come along and the Lord will speak to your heart and you go, okay, I'm going to give to them. It's okay. No hard feelings. We all serve the same God. It's important. 2 Corinthians chapter 9 and verse 7. The New King James Version reads, so let each one give as he purposed in his heart. In the Greek language, the phrase purposed in his heart means has made up their mind. You know, I've sat out there like you guys have, and the Lord lays something on your heart. He says, Paul says, just give what God laid on your heart. It's $5, $10, $100, whatever it may be. He says, just whatever's been laid on your heart, he says, you just go ahead and give that amount. Not grudgingly or of necessity, which means this in the Greek, not reluctantly or under compulsion. I'm not here to manipulate your feelings through photos to get you to give. I want God to speak to you about giving, not me. Let the Holy Spirit talk to you. And like I said, if it's something great, if it's not, that's okay too. You know, God will take care of it. Take care of us, that's not a problem in there as well. He says, for God loves a cheerful giver, and that is one whose heart is in the giving. You know, you're giving something no matter what the amount is, and you know that, you know what, I feel good about giving X number of dollars for Cuba. That's great. That's awesome. Whatever it is that God lays on your heart, you follow through and do, and I want your heart to be in the giving. So let me close up with this. Over there with the journals, now there are journals over there. I wrote a journal several years ago. Every time we've moved, I've moved them, and I've moved them, and I've moved them. I'm sick of moving them. So if you are a journaler, all right, or you have a friend that is a journaler, please take one. And it says free. I mean free. You know, help yourself. Now, the other book is called God of the Storm. I've written 2 books. One is Ruins to Rebuilding. The other one is God of the Storm. And I have to sell those because, you know, I paid for it to have them, you know, printed out there. God of the Storm is taken out of Acts chapter 27. And what it is Paul is on a ship to go stand before Caesar. A storm comes in. It's called a Euroclydon, which I call it a hurricane. But what had happened is as the storm comes in, it grabs the ship. And the storm is now in control. You ever had something bigger than you come into your life and you realize you didn't have the control, the storm did? A diagnosis that you weren't expecting, the death of a loved one on the end of the phone call because there was a car accident. Maybe you're in a chemotherapy room and you're just shaking your head. How in the world did I get here? You see, some storms in our lives are bigger than us. And all they could do is, you know, bring down the sails, pull up the oars, and it says, and we let her drive. It means it was taking them where it wanted them to go. In about the middle of that 27th chapter, an angel appears before Paul and tells him, you know, everybody's going to live. The ship is going to get wrecked, but you're all going to be safe. And I love that part because when I read it and I share it with people, it's interesting because the angel never showed up and said, Paul, where's your faith? Why don't you just go over to the bow of that ship and tell the storm to be quiet? Matter of fact, stopping the storm was never part of the conversation between Paul and that angel. You know, there's some storms we go through because it matures us. You know, and I love when God calms the storm. I love when God lowers the mountains and get them out of our way, but it doesn't always happen that way in life. Sometimes we have to face the storms. And the storm brings them to the island of Malta. But it's interesting because as they're coming into the island of Malta, it says they all looked at the beach they were looking at, and no one knew where they were. You ever go through a storm and you have no idea where it's taking you, where you're going, how long it will last? And when it starts coming to the end, you look at where the end is at and you don't even recognize where you're at anymore. Storms, that's what storms do to us. So the essence of that book called God of the Storm. That is what it is about, the 27th chapter of Acts, and those are $10 a piece. And there's a bag back there that's got some change in it. You know, if you put in a 20, you need to get some fives or something out, you're welcome to do that. If you write a check, just make it out to me because I got to pay for the books. Just that simple. You got to pay for everything. You know, nothing's free here. Well, shouldn't say that. No, I don't want to get political. Anyway, I better drop that one right there. Anyway. So anyway, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. Thank you for being here today. And pray for Open Bible. Pray for all of our missionaries. Pray for us as we travel. And God bless all of you. Pastor?
Thank you. Thank you. That was great. That was great. Love to see the work that we help provide for. And
Amen. That's where your money goes.
That's right. Ushers, if you want to grab the